Hello, hello, hello. This is Chris Ferdinandi from GoMakeThings.com. And today we're going to be talking about HTML first web components and why they're better than React and the React-like approach to web development. Something that I see really frequently in the web component space. This video and others like it are made possible thanks to the generous support of my Go Make Things members. A recurring membership helps me create more videos like this and also get you some cool perks. Join or learn more at gomakethings.com/join. To help make this click, we're going to look at a common but complex UI component, toggle tabs. With this pattern, you usually have some sort of navigation menu, and when you click on the items or you move through them with the arrow keys in your keyboard, it shows different content kind of dynamically. In this video, we're going to look at three different approaches to this. The first is the more traditional way that this would normally be done, just hard coding all the things with some CSS and some JavaScript. Then we're going to look at a web component-based approach, but one that uses a more React-like approach to how it's designed. And then we're going to take a look at what I think is a better approach, the HTML web component approach. So let's start by looking at the classic hard-coded approach. So this is an example I stole directly from Bootstrap. If we were to take a look at the UI, we've got Merlin, Gandalf, and Radagast. And if I click on one of them, that tab shows up. I can also navigate through with my keyboard, which is great. But if you look at the underlying code, there's a lot here, right? So all of the required classes, all of the required roles, attributes, they are all in here. And you can see we've got the tab list, the role equals tab. So like the semantics of this are all good. The accessibility is great, right? And it works. But this is a lot to write. Like if you were going to do this, you're probably going to want to wrap this in some sort of templating engine because it's awful. The other problem with this approach is I'm going to turn off JavaScript and reload the page. And you'll notice now that nothing happens. Now, I know most folks are not I get asked this a lot, like who cares? People aren't turning off their JavaScript. First of all, some people actually are for very valid reasons. The web is littered with tracking cookies and ads. There are plenty of really great reasons to just turn off JavaScript altogether. Performance reasons, you're on an older phone, whatever. But more often what happens is your file times out and doesn't get downloaded because someone's connection is too slow, or you've used some newer API that their device doesn't support, or the CDN you were hosting your code from went down. And some of the other stuff loads, but JavaScript doesn't, or they run through a tunnel on a train and that file didn't finish downloading, or they're in a corporate environment and the company's VPN or network restrictions block your JavaScript file because they think it's malicious. And now you've got a site that's broken. And so, even though maybe like the ideal use case is not that people turn off their JavaScript, and it's okay if they do, but a lot of times it's out of their control. And so having something that doesn't work kind of sucks. So that brings us over to a newer web component from the Font Awesome folks, Web Awesome. This one's still in development. It's like an alpha or whatever. But, you can see it works basically the same way. It actually feels a little bit snappier, and it works with the keyboard too. So the accessibility is all there. But if we look at how this is coded under the hood, you've got a tab group web component, a tab pane web component, and a tab panel web component. The tab has a corresponding panel, and the panel has a name. And when the web component instantiates, it makes all of those connections for you. So if I were to look under the hood, for example, just at one of the tabs here, we've got buried in here somewhere. So it points to this slot as just text. Okay. Yeah. So this is actually, it's weird. Like it's not, they've decided to not go with buttons. So they're wrapping all of the accessible stuff on the component itself, and presumably detecting keyboard things. Like I can tab into here, no problem, which is great. So all the keyboard stuff is working. It's just done in kind of a strange way, in my opinion, where the it's not a button. They're using some strange interaction elements there. In my opinion, this is a step up from what we see with Bootstrap. Like, this is a nightmare to write. You could theoretically hand code this if you needed it. It's relatively straightforward. And unlike the Bootstrap version, if you turn off JavaScript, because it's a web component, what you end up with is just text. So all of the content is still going to be there. The problem is, because of how this is structured, none of it is semantic. So you've got Merlin, Gandalf, and Radagast as text, but there's nothing in there that's associating them with their content. So if I was like a visually impaired user using a screen reader, this isn't going to make any sense. If I'm not visually impaired, this still doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And, like another use case for JavaScript off is sometimes it just takes a little while to load. And if someone gets to that site before then, like, it's much nicer if they have something to look at than if they don't, right? So, having something functional is helpful. And so that brings me to the approach I prefer: HTML first web components, where you're taking some existing HTML and you're making it better once the web component loads. So here's my take on this. It's the same exact pattern, right? Where if I click on one of these tabs, the next one shows up. I can also navigate with a keyboard. I can tab my way in here using keyboard events. So everything's behaving like I would hope, like I would expect. Under the hood, this looks more like the WebAwesome approach than the Bootstrap approach. So once the JavaScript loads, it looks more like Bootstrap. Before it loads, it looks more like WebAwesome, but just a little bit different. So you can see it's about the same size. Actually, let me split pane these. They're small enough that we can do that. So it takes up the same number of lines. I've got my wrapper web component, my toggle tabs group. Unlike the WebAwesome version, I have an unordered list with some anchor links. And then I've got some divs with some IDs. So instead of a name, I've just got a div with an ID. Without JavaScript, so actually if we just turn it off for a minute. So without JavaScript, I have a list of anchored items. And it won't really do anything now because this page is not tall enough for it. But if I were to click on one of these, it's going to jump me down to the respective items. Like in an ideal world, you'd have obviously a lot more content in here, right? But so it works. It's perfectly functional HTML, and it's really easy to write. I don't need to remember any custom elements. I'm just using normal native HTML elements. But once JavaScript becomes enabled and the web component loads, it adds all of that important stuff under the hood. So I meant to zoom in over here just so we can see it a little bit better. So you can see we've got the role, the correct roles. Everything has all of the corresponding stuff that you need there, whether it's selected or not, right? So this is a currently selected one. This one is not. And so we've taken an existing piece of HTML and we've enhanced it once that support is available. So users always have something that they can actually interact with. And if the JavaScript never loads, you're still smooth sailing. And I personally think this is a much nicer way to write web components. It doesn't require any more work, but it's much better for the user. Let me give you another example. So WebAwesome has this component called relative time that is designed to take a time. It could be a timestamp, could be like a valid date string. So in this case, it's July 4th, 2025 at 9:17 in the morning. And it's going to take this and it's going to show you the relative time from right now. So I'm filming this on April 22nd, 2025. So July 4th is in 2 months. And that's what you see here. The problem, of course, is that before JavaScript loads, or if it never loads, the user sees Nothing at all, because it's an empty element. And the input is the date property on that element. Here's a different way that I would personally approach this. So I've got my relative time web component, but rather than including the date as a property, the React way, right? So this is very much like a React way of coding things, where everything is a prop and then the pattern runs. And that makes sense with React because React doesn't work without JavaScript. Like, the whole app falls apart. But this isn't that. This is just HTML, right? And it's HTML that will layer in some interactivity. So I can instead include that timestamp as the text, and then the web component can take it and make it better once it runs. So just jumping over, you can see it still renders in 2 months when JavaScript is available. But if I turn off JavaScript, I get this. It looks a little weird. It's a little less easy to read, but you at least have something of use here, right? You don't have nothing at all. This is the way I personally like to structure my web components. I think it works a lot better, both for you as the developer or the author and for the end user. And I'm actually building out an entire web component UI library that uses this approach. It's designed to be framework agnostic, easily customizable. I'm going to include some pre-built styles that you can use with it, or you can go naked and roll your own if you'd prefer. And I'll have some guidance on how to do that. But this is generally how I'm going to set it up. If you want to learn more about this, by the way, or kind of keep track of progress, head on over to gomakethings.com and sign up for my newsletter. That's where I'll be publishing all of the information about the project as it progresses. That is, in a nutshell, that is how HTML first web components work. And I think they are a superior approach to the way a lot of folks approach web components, which is to treat them like React components. Frankly, they're not. And if you want something that works like that, I actually think in a lot of cases, a state-based UI library like React is a better choice because it can be reactive in a way that web components can't. Using web components like this feels like you're basically creating a React alternative where web components just happen to be an implementation detail. You're not using them to their full potential. I recently decided to stop selling expensive courses that most folks can only afford with a corporate training budget and focus on creating more excellent free content, including YouTube videos like this one. A recurring Go Make Things membership helps me create more videos like this and also gets you some cool perks like access to my private Discord community and my personal collection of courses, guides, and code snippets. There are a range of membership levels available, and they all get the same stuff. Even $3 a month helps keep this channel going. You can join or learn more at gomakethings.com/join. That's it for this week. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're not already. If you have any questions or feedback, or you think this entire thing is stupid and you really want to let me know, please leave a comment down below. If you have any ideas for things you'd like to see in future videos, you can leave those in the comments as well. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Cheers.